I want to take a minute to tell you guys about our Patreon page and all of the great stuff that we offer for our pledges. As you guys know, SleeperWire is a charity working towards the prevention and treatment of chronic Lyme disease. As a Patreon pledge, here's what you can get. The Draft Genius Draft Kit PDF with rankings for all sorts of leagues, priority answers on the live mail sack shows, early access to the Sunday Blitz every Sunday morning during the season, the full Draft Genius Draft Kit, which includes rankings, articles, draft strategies, expert opinions, and more, a SleeperWire mug, a SleeperWire t-shirt, automatic entry to a listener league, and automatic entry to the SleeperWire Pro-Am. Your generosity will help make a difference. Visit www.patreon.com/SleeperWire for more details. The SleeperWire Pro-Am is back. This is our third season and the biggest one yet. We've got great guys from the industry like Marcus Grant, Matt Harmon, Jake Seeley, Pat Fitzmaurice, and more. We're going to be running more listener leagues. Stay tuned until the end of the show to hear more details about how to enter. Welcome everybody to the SleeperWire Show. I am your host, Professor Chris, and with me today, I've got Dirty Jobs Mike. What's going on, Mike?
What is happening, man? I'm excited. This is an exciting show, Chris. What's happening, man? What are you up to?
Oh, man, you know what? I'm not even going to tell you what I'm up to because I'm so pumped to get into this show. As you mentioned, this is very exciting because we have a new partnership. We have brought the Break from the Grind podcast into the SleeperWire network, a great show that has been doing not only fantasy stuff, but deeper discussions with things as well. And we bring on Jason and George. Guys, how's it going?
Going great. Thanks for having us on.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you. We are excited to be able to join you guys.
Yeah, and you know what? We're paying you guys as much as we get paid. So
I was actually, so when I negotiated my contract, I got double what you got, Chris. I hope, that's okay.
Yep, that's right. You're getting paid. You're probably, you're even getting paid 100 times what I'm getting. Man.
I shouldn't have quit my job.
No, you shouldn't have. Now maybe they'll take you back.
I need to call my manager real quick.
Oh, all right, guys. Well, we are super glad to have you as part of the SleeperWire show, SleeperWire Network. You guys are still doing your own Break from the Grind podcast, and tell us a little bit about that.
Well, so what we like to call ourselves, we started on the Fantasy Life app, and now we're with SleeperWire, so we're going to call ourselves the non-fantasy podcast on a fantasy football network. We have guests like Matt Harmon this week. We've had Justin I'm going to mess it up.
Lamero. It's Justin Lamero. Get it right.
You screwed that up on the Matt Harmon show, too, didn't you?
I did that one on purpose because George screwed it up 3 times on our show when he was trying to introduce him. And now I've gotten so used to saying it wrong to make fun of George, I can't say it right. But we have guests like that on, but what we like to do is talk to them about non-fantasy football, because to me, if I wanted their sleepers, I'd go to their shows. But really, if I wanted sleeper picks and average draft position talk, I'd come to this show. So why go to the Break from the Grind to hear what Matt Harmon thinks about sleepers? So we like to dig deeper. We got into it with Matt Harmon about his weight loss, some depression, and we asked him for some coworker fantasy trades.
Well, I mean, the show name is Break from the Grind, right? Like, that's what exactly it is. I mean, fantasy football is quite a grind, especially if you look at it 365 days a year, like all of us do. And I mean, so that's exactly all it is, man. I'm a huge fan. I've listened to a lot of your guys' podcasts, and it's exactly what it says. The break. It's nice. It's awesome. So I'm glad you guys are going to continue doing that as well.
Yeah, in this most recent show, you guys, when you had Harmon on, you were talking about how you guys were doing that weight loss challenge, the 6-month weight loss challenge, and you talked about where he started based on his story and everything like that. And as I was listening to it, I really wanted to be in this show because almost a year ago today, I went to the doctor and I saw the big 3 number on the scale as well. And now it's 50 pounds less. So,
nice.
Yeah.
Yeah. Congratulations.
Yeah, it's a good feeling, man. So I wanted to be on there talking about that with you. We've had that common ground. But this is a fantasy football show.
Let's dig in.
So we're going to kick it off here with our quick question. Here is the current first-round ADP list for 12-team PPR, and I want you guys to tell me who is most likely to bust. And I want to, give a quick disclaimer here that we're not saying these guys are going to bust. We're not going to say don't draft these guys in the first round. They're not worth the first round pick. Please don't read into it like that. We're just our opinion on who has the highest chance to bust. So, in order from 1 through 12, Todd Gurley, Le'Veon Bell, David Johnson, Ezekiel Elliott, Antonio Brown, Alvin Kamara, Saquon Barkley, DeAndre Hopkins, Kareem Hunt, Odell Beckham Jr., Melvin Gordon, and finishing off is Leonard Fournette. And George, I'm going to kick this one to you first. Of those 12, who is the most likely to bust?
I'm going to take, some will say it's the easy answer, but I think it's going to be Kareem Hunt. We've seen Andy Reid game plan him out of games last year for a good 3-4 weeks straight. He was basically unusable. And if you remember back to last season, in the preseason, he wasn't even a starter. It was Spencer Ware. He couldn't beat out Spencer Ware for the starter's position. And now you got Spencer Ware coming back. You've got a second-year quarterback in Mahomes back there versus a steady veteran in Alex Smith. They've added Sammy Watkins, so there's going to be more weapons on the field. So I think between more offensive weapons on the field, I think Spencer Ware's going to come back and cut into some of his workload a little bit. I think they'll cut him back a little bit per game. So I'm going to take the easy one and say Kareem Hunt.
What about you, Jason?
I'm going to take a different route. I'm going to say David Johnson. And the reason I'm going with David Johnson, I like his talent, and I actually like his opportunity, but what I don't like is anything else about that football team. Their quarterback's a question mark. Their offensive line's a question mark. The talent outside of Fitz is a question mark. His injury status is a question mark. He wants a new deal. He's not in camp. I don't like anything about David Johnson except for his history.
And we are going to touch on that David Johnson news here in a little bit. But, Mike, what about you? We've got Kareem Hunt and David Johnson so far. What about you?
I really like the fact that these guys are both just on it right away. Boom. Because I agree with both. I like David Johnson and Kareem Hunt here because I kind of agree with exactly with what both of them said. But the guy on this list that I kind of just don't like is Saquon Barkley. And I'm going to be getting into it, a few more things about him a little bit later. But the thing about him that I don't like the most is the fact that I just don't like Giants running backs. And I can't like Giants running backs. It's one of those things you're going to have to prove me wrong before I believe it. And seeing this guy going in the top 10, it's just too much of a risk for look who it was last year. He finished like the 30s. So, come on. No, thank you.
Yeah, and I'm going to take Saquon Barkley as well, and it's got nothing against his talent. I know he absolutely destroyed the combine. I know he was phenomenal in college, but he's a rookie running back in a very non-run-friendly offense with a pretty poor offensive line, and being taken 7th overall? Come on, guys. Come on, we haven't seen him play an NFL snap. I'm with Mike. I want to see him do it before I'm willing to invest this kind of draft capital in a player. All right, let's go ahead and get to the news. Actually, before that, was that the quick question we've ever had?
Yeah, actually. We might have all kinds of records like that, though, with who's not on the show.
I'm going to say the BFTG crew is nothing if not efficient.
Nice.
I love it. I love it. All right, kicking off the news here. Big news, especially for Colts fans. Andrew Luck has finally thrown a football. You know what? I heard it was a high school football. It doesn't matter. He still picked up a football and threw it. Jim Irsay has stated that Andrew Luck is not going to have any limitations for training camp, and Luck also confirmed that. So, Colts wide receivers, T.Y. Hilton, is he worth jumping back into the second round now, Mike?
Absolutely. Yeah, no, I mean, this guy with Andrew Luck out there, the talent is there, the combo's there. I'm not worried about Luck. If he's going to throw, if he's in there, throwing a football and starting an NFL game are two completely different things, mind you. So, if I see him start getting more active, I think you'll see T.Y. Hilton start skyrocketing up that ADP list.
George?
I love T.Y. Hilton. He's one of my favorite wide receivers. People forget that just a couple of years ago, he was one of the top wide receivers in the NFL.
Oh, he led in receiving yards.
Yeah, I mean, he's a phenomenal talent. I'm still leery with Luck, though. Yes, okay, he's throwing a football. That's fine. I want to see him get hit. Once I see him get hit and get up and still be able to throw a football, I'll be a little bit more excited. I like the value that you're going to get at T.Y. Hilton at right now. I'm not sold that Andrew Luck is actually going to come back.
I'm more pessimistic than George is here. We're at the point in the offseason where everything's rainbow and sunshine. So all the rookies are the best they've ever seen. Players without pads are doing amazing things. Andrew Luck actually has a football in his hands. I mean, we're at the part where they're going to say, I think we were at this point last year too, where, hey, he has the ball in his hands. It's only a matter of time. And then it kept slipping and kept slipping and kept slipping. So for me, I like T.Y. Hilton. I think he's an amazing receiver, but it's going to take a lot for me to see, for him to rise up my board, just because until Andrew Luck's actually throwing him the ball with pads on, I can't be excited.
Well, where's he going right now in drafts? Is he a 4th-round pick?
T.Y. Hilton? I believe he's at the end of the 3rd.
He is at the end of the 3rd. So, George, Jason, do you guys expect that to jump up into the 2nd?
No.
Not anytime soon, no.
Okay, because some of the other guys that are going a little bit before him, Doug Baldwin, Adam Thielen, would you take Hilton over those guys?
If I see Andrew Luck throwing, I would.
Yeah, if I see Andrew Luck take a hit, yes, I would. But as it sits right now, and maybe I'm a little biased because I got burnt big time in a couple of leagues last year with Luck, so I'm very hesitant. I have Hilton in a couple of dynasty leagues, so I'm hoping for the best. But I want to see Luck. I think I would still take Adam Thielen, Doug Baldwin, according to Fantasy Football Calculator, Josh Gordon. I would take all of them right now as we sit here and talk today over T.Y. Hilton.
All right. As a Colts fan, I'm thrilled with this news, so super pumped. My only worry is, does he have that forward motion throwing strength back? Or is he going to have that in time for September? Is he going to be able to get that? I'm sure he's been working out his shoulder, and it's probably back to normal strength, just without throwing the football. I wonder if it's going to be enough time to get actually NFL ready for Week 1. Other Colts news, Nyheim Hines, a rookie, has been running as the Colts kick returner, so maybe you'll see him more in that role and less in the starting role. I think he's going to be the 3rd down scat back anyway, but it's good that if you're in a league that gets returns, he might be a good flyer late in your draft. As we mentioned earlier, David Johnson is holding out this week's mandatory minicamp. He is looking for a new contract. There was a report last week that he missed practice during voluntary workouts due to injury. Do you think that injury, which was undisclosed, is not really an injury and it was just him starting his holdout early?
I think so. I mean, if you look at his contract, I don't blame him for holding out. I think he's only guaranteed like $160,000 this year. Everything else is bonuses. It's just he's getting paid next to nothing. He's got nothing really on his contract that's guaranteed. So with no future security guaranteed because he's an unrestricted free agent next year, I think he's just holding out. I don't think that he's actually injured.
You're probably right. I just think it's an odd move for a guy who was injured last year to use an excuse, hey, I'm injured, as a reason why he's not showing up. That doesn't. If I'm a team, that doesn't give me the warm and fuzzies to sign him to a long-term deal.
I think when you're the focal point of basically everything on offense besides Larry Fitzgerald, and you are coming off an injury, it's easier to use the injury excuse versus the contract excuse because you're going to get less blowback saying, oh, I've got this little injury or I'm not completely healed versus I'm holding out for a contract.
Moving on here, Julio Jones is also not attending mandatory minicamp. Didn't he say just a couple weeks ago that it was not due to a contract situation? And now he's not going to a mandatory minicamp? That tells me it might be related to a contract situation. I know he sat out of the voluntary ones, which is smart. He's 29 years old, and he's got a history of nagging injuries, so why, maybe aggravate something this early in the summer if you don't have to? But don't say it's not contract related if you're going to miss the mandatory minicamp, right?
Yeah, I don't think anybody's really worried about Julio Jones missing this minicamp. But yeah, if you're going to hold out, be forthcoming and say why.
Moving on here, Deshaun Watson was wearing a knee brace during Tuesday's minicamp session. Maybe just to sort of keep his knee from moving unfavorably this early. I'm not sure why he would still be wearing it, why he would be out there if he's not ready. Have you guys heard anything more on this?
Not much, but I would ask that they also put a brace on his other knee, possibly a couple on his elbows, ankles, things like that, because I really need this guy to perform for me this year in a couple of Dynasty leagues. So
just put him in one of those bubble balls with his hand sticking out with the football. Just roll forward and release.
Much to ask.
You guys ever go to one of those parties and they have those sumo suits that you bounce against each other on?
Yeah.
Yeah. Throw him in one of those and make him wander around in it all day, every day.
I was going to say he's allowed to run the ball as much as Tom Brady's allowed to run the ball.
Yeah, I still think he's going to be mobile still, but it's going to be something to watch out for. Hopefully he's not still wearing like a huge bulky brace when the season comes around. Jarvis Landry threw some shade at the Dolphins. He said that the Browns quarterbacks are a lot better than what he had in Miami.
And he's right.
In other breaking news, water is still wet.
He's as a Miami fan, he's absolutely right. I mean, our quarterbacks are absolutely terrible.
I mean, you can make that argument for Cutler, but Tannehill wasn't bad.
Yeah, I agree. I like Tannehill a little bit, and I think Baker Mayfield is a TBD, right? And Tyrod Taylor, I mean, come on. Like, I think I'd take Tannehill over Taylor, I think.
I would take Taylor over Tannehill any day. And this may be the Miami fan in me, but I'm just not sold on Tannehill. There was at one point I was pretty high on him. It's gone away. I've watched him for years, either on the sideline or just killing our team on the field. He's just not a good quarterback.
Didn't he have a QB1 season?
He did, and I was very optimistic about it, and then he turned back into Ryan Tannehill.
I love it. More Browns news. ESPN's Tony Grossi reported that Carlos Hyde is the early favorite to open the season as the Browns starting running back. Not really a surprise, not much news here. I think that's basically what everybody suspected, that Carlos Hyde is going to be the starting running back beginning of the season. Unless Nick Chubb just completely blows everybody away and Hyde is terrible, which, let's face it, Hyde is a talented running back.
Yeah.
There's no way Chubb is going to outperform Hyde enough for Hyde not to be the starter for the first few weeks.
No, I don't even think he'll outperform him this year. I think next year Chubb will be a lot more valuable in leagues. I wouldn't touch him this year.
I'm going to be trying to get Carlos Hyde in almost every single league I can get this year.
And let me add, it's not just on the field that he can't outperform him. That contract puts Chubb in a huge hole.
Yeah.
The Carlos Hyde contract. I mean, he's got to overcome talent and contract.
Yeah, if you're looking at that Browns backfield, and I know this isn't the Dynasty show, but in Dynasty, I love Nick Chubb.
Yeah,
if you can get him, get him.
Yeah.
Next year, Duke Johnson is an unrestricted free agent. He's probably going to walk. They'll probably end up getting rid of Carlos Hyde and get out from underneath the contract they gave him. And Nick Chubb's going to be the guy.
They just gave Duke Johnson a big contract extension, didn't they?
Did they? I didn't. I might have missed.
3-year, I believe. I'll have to vet it though.
3-year, $15.6 million contract extension.
There you go.
Okay, I stand corrected then. I missed that news.
So yeah, it's so that muddies the waters even more for Dynasty.
Right.
Yeah, no, it really does. I was liking that back. I was liking Chubb for Dynasty up until I just found out that they didn't re-sign him.
Yeah, so they've got Hyde and Duke and Chubb for the next 3 years at least.
Yeah. Yep.
So yeah, it's certainly going to be a mess, but still no surprise that it's reported that Carlos Hyde is going to be the starter because it's what we all thought was going to happen anyway. Moving on here, Chargers offensive coordinator Ken Whisenhunt suggested that Melvin Gordon could be a bigger part of the Chargers passing game in 2018. And I'm not sure how much bigger a part he can play. I mean, the guy had 58 catches, 476 receiving yards, and 4 receiving touchdowns in 2017. He was in the top 10 in targets, catches, receiving yards, and receiving touchdowns out of all running backs. Like, how much more can this guy do? Is he Le'Veon Bell? I mean,
well, and this is why I have him ahead of Kamara in a lot of my rankings. It's simply because he's going to be getting the ball a ton on that team, and especially now with Hunter Henry out, he got a huge take up, as well as did Keenan Allen. I'm actually kind of back on board with Keenan Allen.
Yeah, I've got Melvin Gordon as my RB5 and Alvin Kamara as my RB6. Where do you have him, Jason?
I have him around 6 or 7. The thing is, and I know they're talking about he's going to be more of a pass catching back, and the only thing I can think of is maybe they're not going to have Austin Eckler back there anymore.
Right.
That he took a lot of towards the middle to the end of the season last year before he got injured. He took a lot of those third down situations away from Gordon. So I worried about that going into this season, but it sounds like they're maybe not going to use him as much. I don't know.
Eckler didn't even really do that much. People remember one really big game where he had 10 rushes for 42 yards, and that same game he caught 5 passes for 77 yards and 2 touchdowns. Aside from that, he didn't cut into Melvin Gordon's work that much. He just happened to break off a few big plays. It's not like he was getting used on the goal line in place of Melvin Gordon on a regular basis. He happened to break off a couple big plays.
Yeah, I've got Melvin Gordon as my number 7 running back right now.
Okay, where do you have Kamara?
Kamara, I've got him at 8.
Okay.
I'm a little higher on Kareem Hunt, even though I still think he's going to bust. And I'm a little bit higher with Leonard Fournette as well. I think Fournette actually is going to have a phenomenal year this year.
Provided he stays healthy, for sure.
Yeah,
I almost chose him as my bust candidate due to his ankles.
Right.
Yeah, I mean...
He's not going to bust. His ankles are.
Yeah. And I don't... When I do my rankings, I don't account for potential injury other than Jordan Reed, because that's not potential. That's just a guarantee. So I don't want to factor in, well, if he gets injured, I don't want to have to think, okay, injury, because that can affect anybody. So just based on what I project that they're going to do, I have Leonard Fournette pretty high. I just like the situation he's in, and they even improved their offensive line this year.
I like it. Moving on here, Eagles assistant head coach / running backs coach suggested that Jay Ajayi would be the workhorse this season, which, I mean, LeGarrette Blount's gone. Who else do they have in that power back role?
I like Clement a lot, actually, to take over this backfield. I've seen Jay Ajayi try to prove himself in several situations, and every single one of these situations he seems to astoundingly fail in. So with that, I mean, I just feel like this will actually possibly be Clement's backfield. There was also Pumphrey, Donnell Pumphrey.
Oh, Donnell Pumphrey.
Donnell Pumphrey.
Yeah. And I mean, I watched this guy for 4 years. He's in the Mountain West, or he was in the Mountain West, and that guy's for real. So, I mean, I could see him taking that job from Jay Ajayi, too. I just can't get on the Jay Ajayi hype train. I don't care what I read about the guy.
Yeah, and I'm not a fan of Jay Ajayi, right? I've been very outspoken about that for, 3 straight seasons out? No, at least 2. I've never been a big believer in the guy, but I actually do not mind him this year. Which is weird. It feels weird to say I would be okay with having Jay Ajayi on my team after the last 2 seasons. Be like, nope, screw that. Not going to draft him.
Outside of a few really good games against terrible, terrible defenses, 2 of them were being the Bills a couple of years ago. Yep. Jay Ajayi has not done anything in the NFL. I don't care what the coach says. If they're going to make him the bell cow, they can come out and say he's going to touch the ball on 1st, 2nd, and 3rd down. I don't care. I don't want him.
I told everybody not to draft him last year, and turned out to be the right call. All right, let's move on here. We got a couple last pieces of news. The Saints made a depth move signing. They signed Terrence West. They also had brought in Jamal Charles and Tim Hightower for a workout, but Terrence West won that workout today. And there was a rumor that they also invited DeMarco Murray there, but he didn't want to work out with that many running backs. I guess he didn't want to get outshined. I'm not sure. He didn't want to lose to Tim Hightower or Terrence West. But the Saints did sign West, and he's going to be irrelevant when Ingram comes back.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think he's irrelevant now, even though they signed him.
He'll get more carries the first 4 weeks than he will the last 12, though.
Fact.
Yeah, this is true.
And then lastly, other running back news. New England Sports Network's Doug Kyee reported that Rex Burkhead and James White have been handling the majority of the first team reps this spring. George, is this bad news for Sony Michel?
No, I don't think so. Unless he fumbled during workouts and whatnot, then no, it's not bad news for him. I still think he's going to slide right in. I don't think he's going to completely take over the Dion Lewis role, but I don't see the Patriots spending a first-round pick on a running back and not using him in some capacity.
Yeah, how many times have we seen running backs in that Bill Belichick offense disappear and then come back and then disappear and then come back? And so I think if you're counting on Sony Michel, you're in for a rough season. But I think, he got drafted in the first round for a reason. He's going to be a part of that offense. It's just going to be like it always is. He's going to be part of that offense.
But then, on the other hand, Belichick never has a first-round running back. They never draft one in the first round. So you would think that they would want to be running him with the first team more often.
Not if he fumbled.
That's it. Maybe he fumbled.
Well, maybe he fumbled. Maybe he pulled a Jonas Gray, overslept, and showed up late. And in a week, we'll be getting a notification saying that they cut him. Who knows?
Gray. That 4-touchdown, 200-yard game against the Colts, I was so pissed.
Sorry. I didn't remember who it was against. I just remembered that he had a hell of a game.
Yeah, I think he went to the Dolphins the next year, didn't he?
Yeah, they signed him as depth, and we eventually cut him as well.
Yep. All right, let's go ahead and move to our next segments. We're going to talk about ADP avoiders, and we each have one player here, and the question is, which player are you avoiding this season? Who are you not drafting due to his high average draft position? And I'm going to kick this one off here, and you've heard me say this on the show plenty of times. Derrick Henry is a guy I will not have on any of my teams in a redraft league. Maybe in a keeper or a dynasty, it's going to be a little bit different. But right now, he's going at the end of the third round, and that is just way too rich for somebody who I think isn't even going to have the most fantasy points at the position on his team. I firmly believe that if Dion Lewis plays all 16, he is going to outscore Derrick Henry in every single scoring format. I don't believe in Henry this year. The Dion Lewis signing just made any hope I had for him this season go away. I was starting to rise on him a little bit when, Murray not going to be there anymore. But I can't buy into Derrick Henry with Dion Lewis being there. What about you, Mike? What do you think?
I agree 100%. You know me, I'm a huge Dion Lewis guy. And, he just seems to fit that offense so well that I think you're crazy if you think that Derrick Henry can even hold a candle to that guy's talent level. Derrick Henry is great. Don't get me wrong. He's a great north-south runner, whereas Dion Lewis is more of your outside guy. But, Dion Lewis gets it done in the passing game. He's a ball of talent. And, I really like him this year. And I think drafting him after is a joke. He should be in that 3 spot. I agree completely.
Yeah, where's Dion Lewis going right now? I should have looked that up. It's pretty late. Not even 5th round. So end of the 3rd round to get Derrick Henry, or middle of the 5th round to get Dion Lewis. I would much rather spend that 3rd round pick and get Larry Fitzgerald or Rashad Penny or Darius Geis over Derrick Henry, and then get Dion Lewis in the 5th if I wanted a piece of this Titans running game.
I'm going to disagree, and it's because I am a Henry fan. Like I said, I hate to predict injury, but unless your name is Jordan Reed, then it's guaranteed.
Or Tyler Eifert.
Yeah, or Tyler Eifert. But honestly, Dion Lewis almost falls into that category for me. He's right on the cusp. Other than last year was the first year he's played all 16 games in his career. If he gets a big workload, he's going to break. So I don't see him sliding in. I don't see him getting as many carries as DeMarco Murray had last year. He'll break if he does.
Yeah, I think that him in the passing game, he's light years ahead of Derrick Henry in the passing game, and he's also a very good running back. He's not as good of a runner as Derrick Henry is. He's not got the same size or the same speed downfield. He can't burst through the hole as viciously as Derrick Henry can, but he is still a good running back. He is the best overall back on that team.
Well, and we keep waiting for Tennessee to let Derrick Henry loose, right? DeMarco Murray and him split his first year, and then, last year we thought, all right, this year is going to be the year where the 50-50 split goes away or the 70-30 split goes away, and they still tried to force feed it to Murray, and I don't know if they just don't think that Henry can do it, but Then Murray leaves, and we all think, okay, now it's Henry's time to shine. And just like that, they bring Lewis in, and I just don't think they believe he's a number one overall. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, no, I completely agree with that too. I mean, why would they get Dion Lewis in there if they were comfortable with Derrick Henry? You know, I agree 100%. That's a big red flag for me when they signed him.
Yep, I am absolutely not drafting Derrick Henry this year unless he falls to like the 8th round, which, let's face it, that is not going to happen.
Right.
Let's go ahead and move to yours, Mike. Who are you avoiding due to his high average draft position?
Well, my guy's out of the 1.06, and that's Saquon Barkley. And that's only because last year, man, we were talking, I mean, ask yourself, how bad did you want Orleans Darkwa last year? How bad did you want Wayne Gallman last year? These are both guys that, I mean, maybe if you're talking daily, a couple matchups, those guys had a couple of good games in there, right? But we're talking the 1.06 spot, which you would slap yourself in the face if you said either one of those two names. Saquon Barkley is talented. Don't get me wrong. He's amazing. He's fast. He's very dynamic, and he's the type of player you can build a team around. But unless he was like a buy one, get one line free, he's not going to do it. He's not going to be able to get there because he just has too much to struggle against. He's going to be stacked up. He's going to get hit in the backfield a lot. I just don't like it, and especially for a number one. That just terrifies me for a number one.
I've got nothing to add to that. I mean, I think Mike said everything you need to say about it.
Yeah, we go back to just that list of the 12 guys at the beginning of the show. I would take 11 of those guys over Barkley. No, maybe 10 of the other guys over Barkley. I think I might take Barkley over Fournette, maybe. But, yeah, at the 106, that's way too rich. Yeah. Jason, what about you?
No, I'm with you. I mean, at least with Fournette, we've seen him do it in the NFL. So I'm with you. The hype train left that station. Dynasty is the only time he should be going in the first round. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's obvious Dynasty, hey, first round, but like the Dynasty hype in offseason has kind of leached into redraft leagues, I think.
I agree with that too. That's where you're seeing a lot of this one.
Well, I think a lot of the hype with Barkley is the success of all your rookie running backs last year. I mean, you had Alvin Kamara, who did fantastic. Kareem Hunt did fantastic. And I just think that they're expecting him to be able to come in and put up that type of production. And he could, absolutely. He's got the talent to do it. There's nobody behind him that they're going to share the ball with. So he's got the opportunity share, but like you guys said, it needs to be seen before you go ahead and crown him.
They also got Jonathan Stewart. Come on. Jay Stu's there.
The GOAT.
The touchdown vulture himself.
Exactly.
Yeah. All right, George, what about your guy you were avoiding?
My guy, according to Fantasy Football Calculator, is going at 3.04, and that is Tyreek Hill. I think that's way too soon for him. There's much better wide receivers that are coming after him that I would much rather draft over him. You got Doug Baldwin, Adam Thielen, Josh Gordon, T.Y. Hilton, Stephon Diggs. I would take every single one of them before I draft Tyreek Hill. I'm concerned about him having a sophomore quarterback that he really doesn't have a whole lot of rapport with in the game. Now you're bringing in Sammy Watkins, who does literally the exact same thing that Tyreek Hill does, but probably does it a little bit better. You got Spencer Ware there. He's going to catch the ball. Travis Kelce. Unless you're going to tell me that Mahomes is going to be a top 3 to 5 quarterback at the end of the season, I see regression for Tyreek Hill just because of the other weapons that they've added and the inexperience of his quarterback.
So where would he have to be? What round would he have to go in for you to take him? Obviously not the third.
No, it would have to be the 4th. I would take him in the 4th. I would take him right around. They got Brandon Cooks, Juju Smith-Schuster, Alshon Jeffrey, Allen Robinson. That range I'm okay with. I'd probably take Allen Robinson before him. I'd probably take Alshon Jeffrey before him.
Wow,
so do you think, I want to switch here a little bit. Do you think Josh Gordon is worth his 3rd round ADP?
Yes. And I'm not going off of one season, 5 years ago or whatever it was where he was just a beast. If you extrapolate what he did last year, he was putting up over 1,000 yards. There was no other option on the field, and he hadn't played in over 2 years. Now you're going to give him a whole healthy offseason. He's going to get some rapport with some actually decent quarterbacks, and I do believe he's got two really good quarterbacks. I love Baker Mayfield. I wish the Dolphins would have been able to move up to draft him. I like Josh Gordon. I am a certified Josh Gordon truther. I will just let that be said.
Okay. Wow. I see. I've got Tyreek Hill as in PPR as my wide receiver 10. So I would take him in the third.
Yeah.
What about you, Jason?
So I am a little lower on him than you guys are, but a little higher on him than George. So it's like right in the middle. But going back to Gordon, I am completely opposite with George. Like I have to see it on the field before I can be a Josh Gordon truther. We just haven't seen it.
I felt like I saw
I've got
last
him.
Year.
I've got him at 23 right now.
Whoa!
Yep.
23.
There's just
wow.
Well, and listen, I probably don't have him 23 either, but and I have to do a lot more homework before I can tell you exactly where he is. But there's just way too much talent in the third round, right around that spot, for me to take a flyer on Josh Gordon.
Just think about all the weapons that the Browns have. You know, obviously Carlos Hyde in the running game, Duke Johnson in the passing game, Jarvis Landry in the passing game. It's just the team is just so stacked on offense, on paper anyway. Tyrod Taylor does not throw for, 3,000 plus yards every season. He doesn't throw for 30 plus touchdowns. How are all of these players going to be fantasy superstars or even ones at their position with all these things that they've got going on? I'm not saying Josh Gordon isn't a wide receiver 1 talent or even, top 15 wide receiver talent. I just don't think the opportunity is going to be there with Tyrod Taylor. And Baker Mayfield, once again, a rookie. We haven't seen what he can do. I personally can't put my faith in him yet.
I'm just going to say Tyrod Taylor, one of the best things he does is scramble and throw deep. And when that happens, it's not going to Jarvis Landry. It's not going to Corey Coleman. It's not going to Duke Johnson. It's going to go to Josh Gordon.
Yeah, I'm there. I'm with you, George, on that. I have Tyreek Hill as my number 11. So I'm a little bit higher on him. He's definitely, to me, you can plug and play almost any quarterback into that offense, and they're going to have success because of the talent that surrounds them. But I do have Josh Gordon as my 18, so he's a little bit further back. I don't think I'd draft him before I draft Tyreek Hill. I like Tyreek Hill a little bit more talent level, but I also believe in Josh Gordon. I think his talent level's there. The guy is huge, huge target. And I'm with you. Tyrod Taylor's going to hit that guy deep.
We need to stop for a moment and realize we're talking about the Cleveland Browns. So when we start talking about, hey, that offense has got so much weapons it can't fail, it still has Hugh Jackson as its coach and 1 win in 2 seasons.
That is why I said on paper.
Yeah, it was emphasized. It's only on paper.
Yeah, Tyrod's his best season was 3,035 yards and 20 touchdowns.
That's fine. Tyrod's not going to be the quarterback all year either. What they're going to do is they're going to give him a few games. I truly believe they'll bring in Baker Mayfield. And the one thing you can say about Baker Mayfield is he can throw the ball and he's extremely accurate.
All right, I guess we'll have to see. We're gonna have to make a bet on this.
I'm down.
All right, Jason, let's move to your guy.
So I took the easy way out, I think. I took quarterback.
No.
And yeah, it kind of is. I picked Deshaun Watson, and part of it's just due to the fact that I don't take quarterbacks anywhere near the third round when I can get Phillip Rivers in the 10th. But Deshaun Watson showed it for a handful of games. He got hurt. We have no idea if he's going to be fully healthy when he comes back. We have no idea if he's going to be gun-shy because of that injury to his leg. We've seen a couple of quarterbacks get their legs hurt, come back the next season supposedly 100% healthy, but nervous because guys are down around his knees. We just haven't seen enough from Deshaun Watson for him to be in front of guys like Brady, Breeze, Wilson.
Yeah, I've got Deshaun Watson as my QB6 right now going into the season, but just because I like him, in that top half of all the QB1s does not mean I want to draft him where he's currently going. Right now, I guess in PPR leagues it's different than standard, but we've got into the third or into the fourth, somewhere in there between the third and the fourth round. It still is way too high.
Yeah.
I go ahead, Mike.
Oh, I was going to say, yeah, I mean, I love Deshaun Watson. I like his talent. I think the guy is going to be amazing. He's going to be a threat on the field. There's a lot of things that this guy's going to be able to do. I just don't take quarterbacks that early. I mean, there's just too much talent that I can surround it. And like Jason was saying, I can get Phillip Rivers in the 10th. I can get Josh Allen probably in the 16th, things like that.
Waiver wire.
Yeah, even waiver wire. Yeah, that's exactly right. And, I mean, I think he'll be just as serviceable, not as serviceable as Deshaun Watson, right? Because he can run through the air, too. But, I don't know. It's just too soon. I can't get a quarterback that early. I want Carson Wentz. I want Aaron Rodgers. I would just rather have, somebody that can add more depth to my running back department or even my wide receiver one in that spot.
Yeah, people remember his 4 and 5 touchdown games and think he's going to keep up that pace for the entire season, and that's why he's being drafted as the second quarterback off the board. And George, before I let you jump in here, real quick to each one of you guys, who would you rather have this season, Watson or Newton?
Oh, give me Cam Newton. That's not a question.
Yeah, especially if we're taking where we're drafting him.
Nope, just in a vacuum.
Okay, I'm still taking Cam Newton.
Yeah,
and Mike.
Deshaun Watson.
Okay. Well, I'm going to go with Cam Newton as well, and you can get him 3 rounds later. His ADP is just asinine.
Give me Cam Newton over Watson every day. Yes.
Can I ask you a question?
Nope.
Okay.
Anyways, I'm just kidding.
That's not how this works, Jason.
Okay. I keep forgetting it's not my show. No. So Cam Newton and Jimmy Garoppolo are apart by 5 picks. Isn't that insane?
Yes, Garoppolo is going way too high. Way too high.
I don't know. Yeah, Shanahan-led offense. I'm excited.
I've got Garoppolo as my QB 16 right now. I'm not taking him in the 7th or 8th round where he's going. That's just crazy.
So who would shock me that you have in front of him?
In front of Garoppolo?
Yeah, since he's 16.
Let's see. Right in front of him, I've got Dak Prescott. So Matt Ryan, Andrew Luck, Jared Goff, Roethlisberger, and then your standard top 10 guys. Yep. But right in front of him, I do like Dak Prescott, and I think the guy just is getting disrespected this year. And if I'm waiting until super late to take a quarterback, and then maybe I do want Rivers in the 10th, and someone takes him, and he's not there anymore, I will be perfectly fine having Dak Prescott in the 13th or 14th round. I would be thrilled with that. The guy was great last season when Zeke was in the game, and when Zeke was out, he was terrible. And when he lost that left tackle while Zeke was out, he was especially terrible. But when Zeke was there, Dak was really, really good. Someone you can get that late is just – it's crazy that he's fallen so far, but – I certainly want him over Jimmy Garoppolo. Jimmy Garoppolo is even his career stats per game aren't that impressive.
No, so he won games, but winning games in the NFL doesn't win you games in fantasy.
Right, that's it. He hasn't lost an NFL game, but that doesn't mean he's won you fantasy weeks. Looking at last season, he never threw more than 2 touchdowns. He didn't have a 300-yard game. I guess week 17 it was 292 and 2 touchdowns. But I guess he had a couple 300-yard games with 1 touchdown, but that's not what you're looking for when you're starting quarterback. That's not what you're looking for in your top 7 quarterback taken, No,
if I want 300 yards and 1 touchdown, I'll take a Eli Manning. I'll take a Mitchell Trubisky, Alex Smith, Case Keenum. Those guys are going to get you, 300 and a touchdown or 220 to 5 to 250 and 2 touchdowns. They're not going to put up monster games. It'll be few and far between, and you can get them so much later. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, 8th QB off the board right now, just crazy. But Mike, you said something about that Shanahan offense. You like Garoppolo.
I do like Garoppolo. I like everything to do with
defend
Shanahan.
That.
Yeah, I mean, I have him as my number 9. I really like Pierre Garçon. I like Marquise Goodwin. I just think that those guys can really, and I even like Kittle this year. And McKinnon in the backfield? Are you kidding me? This is going to be just a nasty, nasty offense that's going to come out of nowhere from last year. So I really like Jimmy Garoppolo this year because I like all those receivers a lot. That's basically what it kind of boils down to.
Well, all right. So, anything else on Deshaun Watson?
We kind of strolled way off subject there.
Yeah, it's all right.
Yeah, that's what happens.
All right, well, before we wrap up the show, I want to take it back to you guys, George and Jason. So, going back to some break from the grind stuff, how long have you guys been doing the show?
Go, Jason.
We've been recording just shy of about 2 years now. We're about a month from 2 years.
Yep.
A month from 2 years? All right.
So, how we started is George and I worked together at a place we call the Factory, and we used to sit next to each other. And we'd work all day, and we'd there 10 to 12 hours a day, but we would start getting into arguments about pretty much nothing.
If you named it, we argued about it. It doesn't matter what it was.
and we argued so much that people would stop what they were doing at work and come listen to us argue. They would be entertained and stop working for 20 minutes at a time, just listening to us go back and forth. And so we had several people say, listen, we would listen to that if you would just record it and put it online. And so that's how we started.
Yeah. The origin around the name of Break from the Grind is Jason and I work typically anywhere between 50 to 60, 65 hours a week. So for us to have any type of a hobby or to go away and do something, it doesn't really happen that often. So our break from, we'll call it life, which would be our wives, our kids, work, and everything else, is we'd come over to my house and we would just record a podcast together. And it was very therapeutic for both of us just to be able to take a break from everything, breaking from our daily grinds just to do a podcast together. So that's kind of the origin of the name.
Now, when did the fantasy football part come into play? Was that since the beginning, or did that come in a little bit later?
Well, so our first shows, and I challenge any of you to actually sit through them because they're awful.
They're terrible. Oh, my God. They're terrible.
So our first shows were actually non-fantasy football, but they were NFL pick'em shows. So we'd go through each game and kind of give our opinion on the actual games, because we saw that fantasy football was kind of a crowded space. I mean, you guys had it on lockdown, so we wanted to do something a little different, and so we did NFL Pick'ems, but we did it through the Fantasy Life app. George had a lot of followers. I got on there. We made a bunch of people laugh, so we got some listeners through them, and so we asked the Fantasy Life app for questions every week, and we'd answer them. And inevitably, even though we are not a fantasy football show, we would get a bunch of fantasy football questions. So that's kind of how we morphed into more fantasy football, even though we started out not being fantasy football.
And you guys are on there. George, you are Geo, and then Jason, Dr. Mill, so DRMIL.
Yes, sir.
And this is Matthew Berry's Fantasy Life app. If you guys listening haven't heard of that one before, Geo has a lot of props on there.
They're completely useless. I'd give them away if I could. So what I say about the props is the only thing a whole bunch of props show you is who has no life and spends way too much time playing on their phone.
So you started getting a lot of questions about fantasy football on the the Pick'em and everything, which is natural. It's a fantasy football app. So when did you guys start having Fantasy Life app users on the show? Because I've noticed there were a couple times where you had some people who were regular contributors on the app on the show.
Yeah, that was something that I started to do. Was we would talk to a whole bunch of people, and it's a Fantasy Life app, so naturally Jason and I would, more me than Jason, but we would talk about, fantasy stuff. And it got to the point where we just decided, hey, we're building a nice little following. We got, a bunch of people who are active in our chats and whatnot. Why don't we start asking someone if they'd be interested in coming on? So we started to pick people who were either like writing for different various fantasy articles for, different websites and whatnot. Then we branched out to talking to people who were doing their own podcasts and like, hey, why don't you come on and talk to us? And then it just kind of snowballed from there. And then I got onto Twitter and started to become a part of the fantasy Twitter community. And then I started just asking, people who I thought had very interesting stories and interesting backgrounds that they could share about if they'd come on. And we didn't really want to talk fantasy with them. Because like Jason said, we were taking pride that we're a non-fantasy football podcast on a fantasy football application. So we would get people who had really interesting stories to come on, and we would, just get to know the actual host of the show and get to know them a little bit more versus getting to know their advice that, you could find from their show.
Well, and let me say, I do this show basically for me. Like, so if I enjoy it and I have fun and I laugh, like you guys, I hope you have the same weird sense of humor I have. Most people don't. But, we would get random answers to questions, and sometimes we'd get answers that I had to know more about. So one of the users on there, Air Freak, answered a question that he stands to wipe. Now, I'm not going to get too graphic here, but I needed to know how that worked.
I do too.
Yeah. So because I just can't imagine, standing straight up and wiping. It just, one, I'm fat, my arms aren't that long, but two, it's like I just don't know anybody but a kid that actually would do that.
You don't stand straight up and do it. You're still kind of hunched a little bit.
Are you okay? So you're a stander.
Yeah.
Okay. I said, I just don't. I didn't follow any of that. So I had to have him on so he could explain that.
Here,
so
should we change this to a video call so I can
there you go. Yes.
demonstrate?
I'm good.
I don't think anybody needs to see that.
Nobody's gonna want. Mike, what about you? Do you stand to deuce or no?
No,
not to deuce, to wipe.
Nope.
So standing to deuce is a whole nother level.
Yeah, that's a different game. Yeah. You get some splashback if you do that. Anyways, let's move on.
Dragging the show down already. Sorry, guys.
Hey, we love it. We love it.
Yep, absolutely. Well, anything else you guys want to bring up about Break from the Grind? You think you got some good listener leagues going on, right?
We've got 3 listener leagues. And what we do is, Jason and I do a lot of work with Toys for Tots. I'm a Marine in a former life, and one of the Marine Corps' charity is Toys for Tots. So every year for the last 3 years, Jason, myself, and a couple other shows have teamed up to raise money for Toys for Tots every Christmas. The first year we went based solely off of the Fantasy Life app, and we ended up buying about $750 worth of toys. And so we collected all the money, went to Target. Jason is wonderful at scrounging for deals. So he got us a hell of a deal when we ended up buying like $750 worth of toys. The next year we ended up raising about $1,250. So we had a significant bump. And then this year we started doing a whole bunch of listener leagues where we've been buying stuff from Pristine Auction, and we're using that as a prize for the winner of the leagues. And I'm running a 12-team league that the winner is going to get an autographed DeAndre Hopkins football. I'm running a league where the winner is going to get autographed Le'Veon Bell football. We've got a Saquon Barkley mini helmet that we've got a league for that as well. And then luckily for me, Jason just went out and bought some more stuff, so I get to run more leagues.
You get to, or you have to?
Yes, I get to and I have to.
I love it.
Yes, but so far this year we're up over we're about $2,500 raised for Toys for Tots, and if my projections hit where I think they're going to hit, all told, we'll be up over $3,500 this year for Toys for Tots.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah, people have been extremely generous, and we're grateful that, they're willing to put their hard money into our fund for Toys for Tots, that they're willing to donate. We've had people tell us, if I win, I don't want the prize, use it again next year. We've had people, I told them, hey, it's a $50 buy-in, and they've ended up going because it's for charity. They've doubled it and given $100 to join a league. I mean, it restores faith in humanity that there are good people out there.
And where can these good people donate?
You can go to UCaring, the UCaring website. You can 2018 Toys for Tot Drive. It will come right up. You can also go to my Twitter page at BFTG Pod, and it's a pinned post.
Okay, and then they just take a screenshot of their donation, send it to you, or how do they enter?
Yep. If you're interested in the league, make the donation. Send me a DM either on Twitter, the Fantasy Life app. You can email it at bftgpodcast@gmail.com. You can reach me on the Fantasy Life app at Geo. Just send me a screenshot. Let me know, hey, I donated for this league. We'll go ahead and get you in. Right now, we've got 4 more spots available for the Le'Veon Bell, and that's $50 a person to get in. And then after that, I'm going to focus to help. Let's fill up that SleeperWire Pro-Am. And then right before the season, I'll probably be doing at least 1 or 2 more leagues for Toys for Tots.
I love it. And that is a perfect lead into what we're going to be talking about at the end of this show. And that is the listener leagues and the Pro-Am that we are doing for the SleeperWire show as well. So we've talked about the Pro-Am a little bit, but this year we're going to have 4 SleeperWire listener leagues going on. And the way you get in, it is a $25 donation to www.gofundme.com/RobJR, and that gets you an automatic entry into a listener league, and the champion of each league is going to get assigned NFL jersey courtesy of pristineauction.com. So 4 more ways that you can be in a listener league with us here at SleeperWire, and it's everything we do is for charity, and that's why you're hearing all of these, donate, because charity is super important to us, and it's super important to George and Jason from Break from the Grind, which is a huge reason why we wanted you to come in and partner with us.
You can't go wrong doing work for charity. I mean, there's just the feeling you get when you can help somebody in need is very difficult to describe. I know the work that we've done with Toys for Tots, when we go down to the warehouses, we get tour of the warehouses. We get to talk to the people who work there, and they tell us the stories about how it truly affects people. All the work that we do for it, and all the work that you guys are doing for Rob, and that we're going to help continue with for Rob. In the end, it's truly worth it, and it makes you feel good about yourself and about everybody else.
Absolutely. And as we mentioned at the beginning of the show, we have a great lineup for the SleeperWire Pro-Am this year, but we've changed the format for entry. Instead of doing a raffle, we've decided to give out automatic entries to be in the Pro-Am this year. So you don't get a chance to be in, you get to be in. A one-time $30 donation gets you an automatic entry into the Pro-Am. So that's a $25 donation for the Listener League and a $30 donation for the Pro-Am. But right now we are running a deal. For a limited time, you can get an automatic entry into both of them, both the Listener League and the Pro-Am, with a donation of $50 instead of the total of $55. So we're only going to be running that for a limited time, but you have an automatic way to get into both the Listener League and the Pro-Am to play, try to beat the pros and, big names from around the industry, and to also do some good, for a discount. That's going to wrap it up for the show today, guys. Make sure you follow us on Twitter at SleeperWire Show. You can find us on there at Seymour SleeperWire. Mike is on there at Dr. Kane21. George is at BFTG Pod, and Jason is at FL Dr. Milbarge. Is that how you pronounce that?
That is.
Okay. You can find us on SleeperBot at Professor Chris, Dirty Jobs, BFT Geo, and then BFTG Dr. Mill, and then on the Fantasy Life app at Professor Chris, Dirty Jobs, Geo, and Dr. Mill. Well, George, Jason, this is certainly not going to be the last time that we hear from you guys this offseason or this season. You're still going to be doing Break from the Grind. That is your show. We want you guys to have that, but we're also super pumped to have you on the SleeperWire show each week as well.
We're extremely excited to be on the SleeperWire show. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much. This is great.
It's going to be a fun season.
It is. It's exciting.
Yep. All right, guys. Thanks for listening. We'll catch you next time.